So now we are only 4 days away from the start of the Packers season. Sunday afternoon, Packers heading to Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Vikings, an NFC North battle. It's going to be a very exciting game to start off the season for both teams. And so I want to go through, sort of give a preview on this game, give my thoughts and what I think it's going to look like come Sunday. And for the rest of the season, until the Packers season ends, hopefully the Super Bowl, I will be doing a preview video, so stay tuned. I put out Packers content on this channel almost every single day. So when we first take a look at this matchup, looking at the Minnesota Vikings, their team is a little different than last year, mainly because of their new head coach, Kevin O'Connell, who came from the Los Angeles Rams, just came off a Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams. And with him coming to Minnesota, even though I am a Packers fan, I do believe the Vikings are going to be better overall this year just because of everything I've heard coming out of Minnesota about mainly how the players view Kevin O'Connell. He really seems like a player's coach, and they all seem to be buying into exactly what he's doing there in Minnesota. And the offensive players, they seem to be excited about what he's doing there in Minnesota. And so even though I am a Packers fan, I do think the Vikings are going to be better overall this year. And so when we do take a look at this Vikings offense, they have some of the most talented position players in the NFL. Justin Jefferson, no doubt one of the best players at wide receiver in the NFL. Dalvin Cook, one of the best running backs in the NFL. So it's a pretty solid matchup to start off the year for a Packers defense that we've been talking about this entire offseason. We really believe that the Packers probably have a top 5 defense in the NFL, just when you look at what the Packers did in the offseason, bringing back pretty much the entire defense, partly able to do that because Davante Adams was traded, freed up $20 million of cap space. So we were able to bring back both middle linebacker Devondre Campbell for a 5-year, $50 million deal, and then Rasul Douglas on a 3-year, $20-ish million deal as well. Two guys who, if Devontae wouldn't have left, maybe wouldn't have stayed here in Green Bay. So even though we did lose some firepower on the offense, I do think we sort of made up for it on the defensive side of the ball. And then not only those two guys staying here, but also the addition of Quay Walker, who is going to be playing alongside Devondre Campbell. Two guys who are 6'4", have great speed and can really just cover sideline to sideline. And so I think when we see the Packers face off against a team that has a running back talent like Dalvin Cook, who can just, break away at any time, to be able to have two guys like a Quay Walker and Devondre Campbell to be able to, come in there, plug the holes, I think is going to lead to the Packers playing better overall versus the Vikings than they have in the past. And we'll see exactly what this Packers run defense looks like. And I think also when we look at the Packers defensive line, it's one of the best defensive lines we've had in a very long time. We still have Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith on the outside, Kenny Clark in the middle. And then the addition of Jarran Reed, who played lots of snaps for the Chiefs last year. He is an upgrade. And then we have Dean Lowry over there as well. And then besides those guys, TJ Slayton coming into year 2 should be a much better. And Devontae Wyatt, hopefully as the season goes by, will progress and develop into a great player. The Packers, second first-round draft pick from Georgia. The one thing that's going to be tough for the Packers is keeping Justin Jefferson in check. And even though the Packers have a great defense, even the best defenses in the NFL are going to allow teams to score. So it's not like I expect the Packers to hold the team to 0, even though I hope that happens. But the likelihood is the Vikings are going to probably put up some points. But if we look back to last year when the Packers played the Vikings 2 times overall, as we do in the NFC North, the first game we lost 34-31. Justin Jefferson had about 8 receptions for 160-ish yards. The only thing that's different from that game is Jair Alexander was not playing in that game versus Justin Jefferson, and Justin Jefferson just had an insane day. Hopefully that changes with Jair back here, and we'll see if the Packers want to, move Jair around and follow Justin Jefferson, or if they keep him in one spot. I was reading as well about the Vikings that it really seems like this year Justin Jefferson is going to be utilized a lot more and moved around a lot. He talked about Cooper Kupp and how he did things in LA, and maybe Justin Jefferson will move around sort of as Cooper Kupp did as well. And so it's going to be tough for the Packers to keep Justin Jefferson in check. Personally, I would say put Jair near him as much as you can, because Jair is, I'd say, one of the best lockdown corners in the NFL. And if you want any chance at, stopping Justin Jefferson, I think putting Jair as close to him as possible is a smart plan. We'll see exactly what the Packers plan to do there on defense. But we'll see if the Packers are able to keep, Justin Jefferson in check. And when we look at the Vikings offensive line, I think they're an okay offensive line, an average offensive line. They do have some young players there with Ed Ingram, who's supposedly going to be starting at right guard. He's played really well in this entire preseason, so he's most likely going to start. And I still think, though, the Packers are going to, be able to get pressure on Kirk Cousins just because of how talented this Packers defensive line is overall. And you have Rashawn Gary, who was a monster last year, and I think that is going to continue this year. So I do think the Packers are going to be able to get pressure on Kirk Cousins and this offense, and hopefully that can keep up his entire game. So that way he doesn't have time to sit back there and wait for Justin Jefferson to get open, because Justin Jefferson, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and is going to be a very, very good test in week 1 for this Packers defense that many believe can be one of the best in the NFL. So I'm very excited to see what happens here and exactly what Joe Barry's plan is. And just to be able to have this Packers defense coming into year 2 under Joe Barry, year 1, you're figuring things out, you're getting things down. And now because the Packers pretty much have the same defense as last year with about 2 upgrades, the chemistry is going to be there. They already have a year under Joe Barry, so I see no reason why this Packers defense honestly can't be top 5. And hopefully we see them come in here and just put up, a shutdown performance against the Vikings offense. So now moving over to the other side of the ball, looking at the Packers offense, as I already mentioned, the Packers lose Davante Adams in the offseason, which really brought up some question marks as to what is Brian Gutekunst, the Packers GM, and this Packers front office going to do to try to replace Davante Adams. And Brian Gutekunst said earlier in the offseason, the Packers are not going to be able to replace Davante with one guy. I mean, you're not going to find a player like a Davante Adams out there, honestly. And so what the Packers did, they signed veteran Sammy Watkins, who has some question marks as to his ability. Aaron Rodgers has been praising him this preseason, and we'll see what he can do come week 1 in just 4 days. And then, of course, drafting 3 different wide receivers in the draft: Christian Watson round 2, Romeo Doubs round 4, and Samori Toure in round 7 of the draft. And we saw Romeo Doubs dominate the preseason. He had a few ups and downs with some drops and some miscommunications, but that's expected with a young rookie. But just to see what Romeo Doubs has been able to do in preseason gives me a lot of excitement for, I think, just the ability he's going to have to play well and be productive in this Packers offense, even in his first season. And the Packers put out their unofficial depth chart yesterday, and Aaron Rodgers also spoke on who he thinks is going to be, or who the 3 receivers that are the most deserved to start, and that's Allen Lazard, Sammy Watkins, and Randall Cobb. There are some concerns about Allen Lazard and his injury. We don't exactly know what it is. It'll probably come out later today. I did see that Ian Rappaport on the Pat McAfee show did say it looks like Lazard should be able to play come Sunday. So I'm hoping everything is fine there with Lazard, and we'll see if Sammy Watkins can keep up, the performance he had in training camp from what Aaron Rodgers was saying. And I honestly think that if Sammy Watkins can come in and even be half the player he was in the first couple of years of his career, he's going to completely outplay the contract the Packers gave him, which is only around $3 or $4 million in incentives. And I'm also just excited to see, as I mentioned, Doubs already, what Doubs can do when they do bring him in. And I feel like throughout the season, there's going to be no choice but to play Romeo Doubs more, because we saw in the preseason his ability to separate. And when you separate from defenders and you're as open as much as Romeo Doubs was open, the Packers will have no choice but to keep him out there, and I think they'll want to. And hopefully him and Rodgers can keep building that trust. Of course, the regular season, it's different than the preseason, and we'll see if Doubs can keep it up, but I see no reason why he can't. And then, of course, Christian Watson. We'll see. Is he able to play Sunday? He's been dealing with a knee injury, and the Packers seem hopeful that he'll play, but at the same time, he hasn't really played much up to this point, and so that will be something to keep an eye on. And so one big thing for this game, I think a key for the Packers is, of course, as always, trying to protect Aaron Rodgers and keep him safe. There are some uncertainties on this offensive line for Green Bay. We don't know if David Bakhtiari will be starting at left tackle. We don't know if Elton Jenkins will be starting at right tackle. We heard earlier in the week there was a report that came out from Rob Demovsky of ESPN that Bakhtiari said he was on track to play week 1. We don't know if that's going to be a for sure thing. He hasn't played, and besides that one game versus the Lions where he sort of re-injured himself a little bit, he hasn't been fully healthy in 18, 19, 20 months since he first injured his ACL. So even if he does play, he could be rusty, and I don't think if he has a bad performance, we should assume that's going to happen continually. He may need to shake the rust off. The only issue is he will be facing off against Zadarius Smith, former Packer player who all of us Packers fans are very familiar with. Unfortunately, decided to join the enemy lines over there in Minnesota, and he's going to be tough to stop. He did miss, like all of last year, basically, with a back injury. We'll see if he's able to get back to his prior self, but he could be a problem there on the O-line. If Bakhtiari can't play, it'll probably be Yosh Nijman there at left tackle, who's been solid, but still, anyone against Zadarius Smith, you're going to have a hard time, making sure he never sacks the quarterback. And then on the right side with Elton Jenkins, as I already mentioned, also last year dealing with an ACL injury, hasn't really been playing. Who knows if he'll start week 1? If not, it'll probably be Royce Newman, who last year for the Packers played right guard, was a rookie last year. now coming into year 2, has played a lot of right tackle with Jake Hansen coming in at right guard. And the Vikings have Danielle Hunter as well on the other side. A very good pass rush with Danielle Hunter, who missed, like the second half of last season. Zadarius Smith there now as well. So this is a pretty good pass rush. And considering the Packers do have some uncertainties on the offensive line, I'm hoping they can keep Rodgers safe, but I'm not sure it's going to happen the entire night. We'll see. We'll see what happens there, but that is a little bit of an uncertainty for this Packers team. Who's going to start? And if they do start, are they actually going to be able to protect Rodgers coming into this game? And then another thing, with Devontae gone, when we look at this Packers backfield, that is one of the strengths of the team, probably one of the best backfields in the NFL. With Aaron Jones, who is very good as a receiver as well, and I feel like this year the Packers are going to target him a lot in the passing game. We saw what happened in the past when Devontae Adams was out. Last year we saw versus the Arizona Cardinals, Aaron Jones was targeted somewhere between 7 and 10 times. And so I feel like this year, Aaron Jones is going to get a lot of targets in the passing game as well as A.J. Dillon. And then both guys can, run as some of the best running backs in the NFL. So I feel like week 1 versus this Vikings defense, the Packers are going to, if they're having problems with the offensive line, if pressure's coming, the Packers always get the ball out quick. So I'd expect, some RPOs, some quick screens, some, quick little passes to Aaron Jones, some other guys as well, Randall Cobb. And we'll see sort of how the Packers combat this Vikings pass rush overall. But even though the Packers don't have Devontae, obviously this offense is going to look a lot different this year, and we'll sort of see maybe what the Packers have been planning in this week 1 game versus the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings do have some solid cornerbacks. Patrick Peterson is 32 years old now. He's not the player he once was. So I feel like the Packers could maybe take advantage there a little bit. We have Cameron Dantzler on the Vikings corner, who's coming into year 3, I believe, who's played very well at times as well. And so even though the Vikings do have some solid, corners, I still think when you're facing Aaron Rodgers, he's going to find the weak spots in the defense. And I think the Packers receiver core, even though we don't have Devontae Adams, is still going to be a very good receiver core. I don't think it's going to be a, complete disaster, knock on wood. Hopefully that doesn't happen. And we saw last year, week 1, we got obliterated by the New Orleans Saints. Hopefully this year it doesn't happen again. The Packers starters didn't really play at all in the preseason. But I was reading, and the Vikings starters didn't really play at all in the preseason from what I saw either. So it sort of seems like an even matchup considering both teams sort of rested their guys. So I guess that's a positive for both sides. It's not like one team has an advantage when it comes to, most of your starters playing in the preseason. But it is going to be a very exciting matchup, as it always is. Anytime, you have an NFC North matchup, it always seems to be a close game. And for the Packers, obviously, if they're at Lambeau Field, you have a better advantage. But they're not at Lambeau Field. They're going to be playing in Minnesota, which I think will lead to this being a pretty honestly close game overall, just because the Vikings, I think, as I said, should be better. The Packers have one of the best defenses in the NFL. It's going to be very exciting to watch and see exactly what both of these teams do in their first game of the entire season. But that is my breakdown. If you guys want to subscribe and see more Packers content, click the subscribe button down below. Turn on the notifications so you never miss any Packers news or any other videos. As I said, I post pretty much every single day on this channel multiple times. And if you would like to receive my Packers email newsletter, I have a link down below. You can sign up for that. But that is all I have for this video. Comment your thoughts on this game down below, and we'll see who comes out on top come Sunday. But that is all for this one, and I'll see you guys next time.